Most people see themselves as the main character, and this leads to some really weird predictions. We've been surrounded by Marvel movie slop and other action movies, and there's also like an innate human bias towards thinking yourself as like being special or living in a special time in history because you're conscious and the only mind you've inhabited is the one you're currently in. So you think to yourself, oh, then that means I must be special because I'm the one experiencing it. And because of this, most people think that they are living through some uniquely interesting time, that there's, some big conflict, some big thing brewing underneath the surface, right? Like the US government has tech that's like 100 years more advanced and they're only showing us a little bit. The reality is that the world is likely a lot more mundane than this kind of like Marvel movie understanding of how things are going. Weird things are happening and there's a lot of things we don't know about, but does it mean that we're living in a Marvel movie? No. A lot of people think that the world is going to end or the stock market is going to crash like, this month or whatever, because they have this bias towards like the present moment and towards thinking themselves as being uniquely special. A more reasonable view of it is to kind of assume that most of the information you're getting is more or less accurate. A lot of it is going to be biased and you just got to filter through that. But for the most part, the normal narrative is likely mostly true. It's also likely that, you're not living through a completely unique time, right? It's unique for a lot of reasons, but it's also, common for a lot of other reasons. 1920s, people thought that communism was going to develop a global utopia. In the 1960s, people thought that a nuclear war was going to happen like tomorrow. And today we think, AGI and the singularity is going to eat the entire world. But the reality is that it's much more likely we're going to see things change, but it's not going to be like, tomorrow your toaster is walking around and talking to you. On the flip side, reality is actually really weird. And I think singularities do happen on long time horizons, right? If you look, 300 years ago, we were, walking around with buggies and carts and whatever. And now we have automobiles and airplanes. Things are very weird and very interesting, but only, in weird, subtle ways, right? If you really look at something, you'd be surprised at like, oh, wow, there's so much to that. But at the scale of your own life, it makes sense to kind of view most things as like nothing ever happens. But if you zoom out, a lot of weird things do happen.